Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Hey.
What's going on? What's going on, man? Once again, I am thankful God woke me up every day. But we're going to get into what we read and how I could probably be better.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
you know,
It's not even a question. I mean, for me,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
this reading is wild. We just watched something, and it pointed out something really good about the Book of Numbers, which is, God will, um, he'll take you through the consequences of whatever your choices are,
Mm-hmm,
but his promise is still there,
mm-hmm.
and he will forgive you, and he'll keep you safe, but you have to seek him. You know what I mean? Even through our um, issues, our trials and tribulations, sin, but you still just have to seek him. You have to repent, and you have to be like, okay, I was wrong. Sorry, I jumped all the way in.
Yeah. Oh, it's all good.
Okay,
It's
so
definitely all good.
let me ask you, how was your week?
Beat me to the punch, guys.
I did it. That's the
Uh,
first.
my week was good. I learned a lot about myself, and we're ready to get out of our comfort zone a little bit. Got out of my comfort zone this week, and I'm gonna continue doing it. Just thinking about certain things a different way or from a different perspective. So, and besides that, um, it's I'm really ready to focus more on God, myself, you, and my other endeavors. Like I'm ready to, you know,
10 toes down.
10 toes down, man. So it's just gonna be interesting. So, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna be like next week, but you know, I'm trying to be, especially after reading what we read. I'm just trying to be more thankful and have more gratitude. You know, so that's how my week went. Anytime you wake up and you get to live life and you're working where you know, where God has you at, and you gotta be grateful and blessed He's done that for you.
Yeah.
So that's how my week went. So next week is next week I'm gonna dive into this pool of uncomfortability, and it's gonna be cold. Just like when you
Yeah.
dive you go to the beach or the pool, and, even if it's heated, it's still cold. So that's it's gonna be interesting. But that's how my week went. How's your week? How did your week go?
How did my week go? Why can't I remember? It's like all of these days just mentioned to you. Yes, this week was, man, this week was real.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna lie, like I'm not complaining about it,
yeah,
but it was a tough week. It was definitely a tough week, even outside of my own body. Like just some things that some of my friends are dealing with are hitting me, and um I mean, it makes me grateful for. It's a double edged sword, because on the one hand, I'm grateful for my friendships with them, and I'm grateful that God, is keeping me. But then I'm also very, I feel for my friends. So it was a tough week, not just through my own experience, but through experiencing the lives of my friends. So
hmm,
that is how my week went. But all glory be to God. I think God, is doing whatever He's doing, and we don't know. So we can't just assume that this is how my life is going to go. You know what I mean?
hmm.
Like, I think, I'm praying for everybody that I love, and they know it. And, you just gotta stay faithful and prayed up. So I'm praying for them, and here we are. So, and I also had some good stuff happen last week to me personally. So, that some things that I'm excited about, and some things that, again, just trusting God for. I don't claim to know how things are going to shake out, but it looks like things are looking up. So I had some low points last week, and I had some really high points. So.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's life. That's how my week went.
Yeah.
I can't believe it was only 7 days.
Man,
Like,
a lot
what?
happened in 7 days.
It was a lot that happened in 7 days. But hey, I'm still here. I'm grateful.
Yeah, man. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into this reading. So we want to recap. We read Numbers 14 through 22 and Psalm 90.
Mm-hmm.
So Numbers 14 and 15 and Psalm 90, right? So 14 and 15 have to do with the lack of trust, which always angers God, because trust is a big thing, and the various rules. So the lack of trust, right? You got to think like trust is something that is, man. I think it's even deeper than it's deeper than respect, right? Because trusting somebody is a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Like the trust fall. It's called trust fall for a reason.
Mm.
That it's a lot to trust, and I think we constantly lack trust in God.
Yeah.
I know I do. I'm gonna be honest with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't deny that.
He'll be like, trust me, and
sorry,
he'll pull it. It's all good. He'll make sure my phone is too.
We're not journalists, guys. We're not we're not producers. You're gonna hear all types of things going off on the phone. Okay.
Yeah, so
trust.
Yes, the lack of trust. So I mean, it's just speaking for myself, I lack trust in God. But the more that I dive into Him, and the more that I read the Bible, the more that I start gaining that trust back, right? Because God is like, just trust me. And we're so worried about what's going on the outside,
mm-hmm.
and what we can't control, that we stop trusting Him and start relying on ourselves, and then that gets you into a bad, dark place. So you have to trust God, because that's His will for you. That's the hardest thing, right? Trusting God, man, because you don't see it, you don't know it, and then you look back from years and be like, yo, that's why I went through all this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, you find yourself, I know me, I found myself, I didn't trust God.
Mm.
And then the more that I'm starting to trust Him, now listen, trusting God leads to more uncomfortability. You got to understand that, and our minds are built to make us comfortable. So when I say that I'm leaning more to trust God, I'm becoming more and more uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, where God's will is for you. Whatever God's will is, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it goes against the norms of society.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the bar. Okay. Okay, let me talk about that real quick though. Mm-hmm. The trust thing. Trust is a tricky word, because I think it's one of those words that people have their own personal meaning for. There's not, like, maybe, I would venture to say that there's not a universal understanding of that word, where it's like, you know, if I have to think of something on the spot. If you think about lip gloss, just because I got some right here, everybody kind of knows what lip gloss is, right? So there's different types of lip gloss, but like you would know exactly what someone's talking about if they say lip gloss. When you say the word trust, people have not only different interpretations of it, but different levels and variations of it. So when you're talking about trust, you know, really the only way that it applies is 100%. I think that would be my understanding of it. So it's not like I trust you a little bit, right? Because that's it's kind of like so I feel like when you said there's a lack of trust, for sure. um I mean, I do think there's reasonable levels. Like I think it's okay to have levels of trust, but the ultimate level belongs to God. Like you should trust God over anything, anyone, even beyond like science, because that's what miracles are, right? When he makes something happen that is almost like not um scientifically explained, right? Like what happened with those people in this book where they fell. You
Yeah,
know,
we'll
and
get
you've
to
just
that.
seen
Yeah, we're
different
gonna
acts
get
from
to
God,
that.
where things went against the norm. And I would think those are miracles, but it's interesting to me, and I wanted to just touch on the word trust because trust kind of begins with saying it out loud, in my opinion. So if you're saying something that is reaffirming your lack of trust, you probably shouldn't be doing that. There was one interesting verse in here, or one interesting, all of it's interesting, but this line in Numbers 14, 28, and God was actually saying, as I live, says the Lord, right? He said, just what you have spoken in my hearing, I will most certainly do to you. And I was like really stricken by that, because I was like, it struck me because how many times have we walked around and said like, oh, FML, oh, I'm having such a bad day, oh, nothing goes right for me, or something negative like that, where if you kind of just start flipping it and saying, God's gonna handle this, God, I trust you. Even if you don't really feel it, it's the moment you say it out of your mouth, it's like, God, I trust you. And then your mind is like, yeah, I do. So I think, that's really interesting. I just wanted to touch on that because I was like, that's one that I'm going to struggle with. Like, I definitely can't, I would be lying if I disagree with you and say, oh, I trust God 100%, because there's so many things that are distractions that yeah, like, oh, well, I have to do this though, right? Like, yeah, so I agree with you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Don't want to get too long-winded with
man,
that, but that's a big one.
that's a big one. Trust, right?
Lack of trust angers God.
Yeah, and he probably be upstairs. He don't flip tables. He
Shaking
probably
his
be like,
head.
James, come on, man, look at yourself. I told you to do this.
He's got to be in a constant state of shaking his head at me.
Like, yeah,
like Faith. What again?
Again, man. Right? So, and okay. So here's the thing. I'm gonna read it. Once we teachsundayschools.com daily Bible reading plan. Let us know that if you're new, that's what we're basing it on. We read it's four.
Yeah. So
at a time, not So
yeah, we don't read the full week. We just read four excerpts that they outline in the 365 daily Bible reading plan from teachsundayschool.com. Sorry, I know you said that. I just wanted to say
You're probably more clearer than me. I'm a little jumbled at times. Okay, so it says in 14:13, Moses raises a compelling argument. Now I'm going to read 14 and 13, and it says Moses intercedes from the people, and I'm reading the English Standard Version of the Bible, guys. Okay. But Moses said to the Lord, when the Egyptians will hear it, for you brought up this people in your might from among them. Right? So he's saying,
because God was going to, sorry, let me say this real quick. So I'm going to say it real fast.
Ahead.
God was going to strike them with a plague. God was going to strike the Israelites with a plague. And Moses is saying, like, if you do that, if you bring, you brought them out of Egypt, if you do that, then everybody's going to hear about it. Like the Egyptians will hear about it, and like you brought these people out,
Mm-hmm.
so they you want to please let them see, like let them see that you are with these people.
Yeah.
If you brought the Israelites out and they're your people, please don't let everybody see you
Yeah.
striking them down, because it's not gonna, it's not gonna be maybe a good look. I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess that's where he was going with it.
Yeah. And here's you know what I'm learning about Moses' relationship speaking directly with God is, I mean, if you have that level directly with God, I mean, you're legendary because like that. I mean, Moses is speaking direct. The relationship that Moses and God have are uncanny. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm trying to get to, man. Like having that relationship where we're conversing. Like, oh man, I gotta pray for this person. Well, this person didn't do this, James. Well, Lord, but I'll pray for them.
Mm.
Please, but if you do this, what if they think of you? And then the guy was like, all right. That is powerful, man. Very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
comes from him being so obedient to God,
Yeah.
and it comes at a major, I don't say it comes at a price, but like he has to do so much, and
Yes.
he has to be so clean,
Yeah.
in his ways. I just feel like it's not something that's an easy thing,
No.
obviously, right? And it comes with, I don't say consequence, but it just comes with so much responsibility.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I do feel,
It's
I
tough.
relate to Moses, because even from the very beginning, when God tells you to do something and you're like, whoa, God, hold up, not me. Like, I don't think you, I don't think you mean me, right? Like, I find myself in that particular state,
Hmm.
um, more often than I'd like to admit. And it just goes back to the trust thing, but I feel like it comes with a great, responsibility to be that close to God.
Yeah.
So anyway, as you were saying.
Yeah. So it said, would you ever try to reason with God? And if so, what about?
Mm.
Man, ever so would I try to reason with God? I don't know if it's come up yet.
I've definitely tried to
I
reason with
mean,
God
yeah, I
before.
mean, I'm talking, man.
But like that, right?
Yeah,
Like, no,
like
no, no.
the
I have
weight,
something in mind. Yeah.
the weight. Well, maybe praying for a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand, bring them back closer to God. I've asked for that. I've asked, you know, God to heal people and friends that aren't close with Him, just to, and I feel like that's reasoning. Because God
Yeah.
might be like, well, they don't even follow me, James, but you do, and just
Yeah.
because you do,
Mm-hmm.
but that goes back to you have to have such a relationship with the Lord that He's gonna listen to you. But having a relationship is two ways,
Mm.
and for us, it's on us, not God.
Mm.
People misconstrue that. Like God's not, not Amazon where you just order and sometimes we just pray and we just ask for things. Like, right? Shout out
Mm.
to Sharif United Baptist. He was like, we think of God as a genie. Like, I need
Mm.
this, 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 this. And God's like, not to be praying and saying, like, how are you doing, God? But just being more transparent about, I'm trying to pray for transparency about my transgressions and sins
Mm.
to God every day, and then also thanking Him for being great, like thanking Him, not asking for stuff, not being like, I mean, you can ask for stuff, right? But it needs to be more of, from my perspective, like, you know, like Moses was praying on behalf of the Israelites, but his relationship with God was he was listening to God. He was
Mm-hmm.
doing everything God asked him to do, and he was meek, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I that's listen. Moses is Moses, but you want to strive to have a relationship like that, like to be open and transparent. Because if you just pray to God like God, I'll never drink again, he's whatever, you're gonna heal up anyway. But maybe you won't, and then if you won't, then you start praying to him more and more, and then that relationship starts to develop.
Mm.
Right? So I just think sometimes I'm learning a lot about myself. I try not to pray asking for stuff and try to pray more like a this is probably doesn't sound right, but like a journal. Like I'm just trying to confess everything
Yeah.
instead of asking. I can always ask, but let that get to the end. Let's sit in silence and have a conversation to connect more
Yeah.
than asking. Try to make myself be better and you know ask him to trim my fruit, you know, trim
Mm-hmm.
my branches instead of
Mm-hmm.
asking.
Prune. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's hard to ask to prune your branches because that's self reflection.
It requires work from you as well,
Yeah.
right?
So that's the reason. That was really long winded, but that's
No,
the
that was something you
that's
said.
the reason. So, What about you? Did you ever try?
Yeah. So, yeah, on some real, not, like amazing stuff and on some real serious stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, God just has his own plan. I've definitely been the person, like, I mean, I call it God, like you said, when
I've
people ask for like a genie. Oh, that's me. I've definitely prayed
Me
about
too.
like
Yeah.
silly stuff like,
Mm-hmm.
God, please let me get through traffic. I can't be
Yep.
late today. Or God,
Mm-hmm.
please let this check hit on time because I got all my stuff on auto pay.
Yep.
Or like like real
Mm-hmm.
silly stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um I have prayed or tried to, so as far as trying to reason with God, like,
Mm-hmm.
God, if you please, like, not like Moses did, but kind of like, God, if you give me this, I promise I'll never
Yeah.
do this again. Or if
So many times.
you know, uh, definitely I've done that before. God, if you just help me get through this situation, I promise I won't ever sin anymore. Like, I've said stupid stuff like that, even though I
Yes.
knew I would. Not that I was plotting to, but just
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that, just we're in our natural state, we're sinners. And then
Mm-hmm.
there were serious things that I tried to reason with God about. And one was when my uncle on my mom's side passed away. Before he passed away, when it wasn't looking good and we had gotten the reports from the doctors that it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't looking good, um I definitely tried to reason with God, and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows if it worked, because God has his own plan, right? So
Yeah.
like, in my opinion, right, it didn't work, but I know that God has his own plan, and I know that my uncle is now with God. So it's like, we
Yeah.
just think this life is just the end all be all sometimes, and it's not. It's temporary. And so losing someone feels bad to us,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all, we all know that it's going to happen, and we just don't know when. So
Yeah.
I just think, whether I thought that I reasoned or not, right? Like, maybe he did answer my prayer in his way, and I didn't know that, right? Or I didn't feel that because I'm at a loss, or or I felt a loss. But
Yeah.
I still talk to my uncle, and I think my grandfather and my uncle be talking back to me. I really do. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So yes, I would reason with God, and probably
Mm-hmm.
about family. Like, there's certain things that have happened to people's kids in the Bible. I could completely see myself praying for my son, or my,
Mm-hmm.
even my nephew, because I think of my nephew like my son.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I completely can see myself trying to reason with God, like, God, please, 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 like, let this happen, or don't let this happen, right? Please, right? I could definitely see myself trying to reason with God about that. But another thing that I just want to point out very briefly, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
is that when Moses is talking to God and trying to reason with him and praying on and interceding on behalf of the Israelites, he's bringing up God's word, which is not like a hack, but it's like, if you're going to pray to God, you're going to need to know his word. You're going to need to know what his promises are so that you can like say, God, please, deliver this just like you said you would. And God's not going to go against his word. But if you don't know God's word, you out here in these streets just guessing. Praying, And the other thing is, God knows what's best for you. So a lot of times my prayers now, I still be praying for, circumstances, blessings. I still be praying for all of that. Praying for healing for people, praying for all things like this. But I've learned to pray for God to work in me and to use me to do his will. So it's like, however you want to use me today, God, use me, and I'm available, right? I'm submitting to you, right? And so that's like, however this goes today or whatever, I'm with you, God, and I know that that's what you wanted.
Boom. Two things you just said. God used me. That's a relationship you're building.
Yeah.
Because you're not asking. You're trusting.
Yeah.
Because you're submitting.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's trust.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, God used me to get your word out.
Yeah.
That is trusting. And that's a relationship you're building with him.
Yeah. I get that.
You asking. That's a big ask. Because he's like, okay.
Well, yeah, I think that's
exactly. That's what and then I think when you have, more relationship and more trust with God, listen, life is going to go where there's nothing we can control about life. But if you have read the Bible and you have and you trust God more, you're not going to say you're not worried about life, but you will be
like more at peace.
More at peace. You'll be meek. You'll be calmer. You'll be able to control your emotions because with everything, the Bible is knowledge. Right? Everything that we talk about, like being calm in a storm, and that's what it's about. So, all right, number 16 through 17. It says 3 foolish young men, and Aaron's staff sprouts. So this is about Korath and the rebellion.
Right, okay. I had to go back to get a reminder.
It's about Korath and the rebellion. And 17 is about the staff and how it buds. And this is where they were...
they assembled together. They rose up against Moses and Aaron.
Yeah.
And they said, "You've gone far enough." Okay, I'm just paraphrasing here, but he basically was saying that they were trying to get the people of Israel to rise up against Aaron and Moses, like, you've taken us too far. Because you gotta remember, these Israelites are complaining every step of the way. It's like God is providing for them, and then a little bit later, then they start complaining that they're hungry or that they're thirsty or that they want more. Why did you even bring us out of Egypt? They're saying, right? Just wild stuff. And then at one point, they're like, we're gonna, we don't. They're basically saying, like, Moses and Aaron, we don't trust you anymore. Like, we want to go back. I don't know if they were going back to Egypt. They wanted to go back to Egypt, or if they were just kind of like, you're leading us into the wilderness and talking about the promised land, and we're just not. We're not going to follow you anymore. Basically, was the long and short of it. And so they tried to like get some of the Israelites to rise up with them and rebel, and they just like angered everybody and just caused a bunch of confusion.
And Korath is from the Levites.
Right.
Yeah, so they are trying to get the Israelites. It's just very interesting that, people take stuff for granted and they complain. And you forget what God has done for you in the past. And then you just complain about where you're at now. And that's never good. It's never good. So I'm going to read verses 16. This is number 16, verse 12 through 14. And 12 is, and Moses sent to call Dathan and Abram, the sons of Elihab, and they said, we will not come up. It is a small thing that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also make yourself a prince over us. Moreover, you have not brought us into the land of flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of the fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up.
Right. So he's basically doubting
Yep.
Moses and saying, like, you know, you brought us out of Egypt and promised us this land of milk and honey, and we haven't seen it. So you must, I guess he's calling him a liar. And he's saying, you know, is it not enough that you brought us out, that you're now going to make yourself like in a hierarchy over us, as if to just question everything that God has done. They've seen all these miracles. It's like, what else do you need to see? You've seen all of these miracles. You've been eating and drinking the entire time, whether you like the food or not. And all of us have had that conversation with our parents growing up. Liver or okra. Oh, despise.
I don't like this. And it's like,
I don't like this. Well, you're not hungry.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want tuna fish. Well, you're not hungry.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, oh, well, I guess I am because I'm going to eat this. Right? So, but it's like, that was just like a little joke, whatever. But yeah, how soon we forget, like, all the things that God has done up until this point, and they were following the cloud and everything. So it's like really odd. And then you look around and you're like questioning.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what? Like, you just forgot everything. So anyway, sorry.
No. That's good. So I think you're definitely right. And I do that a lot. We talked about this, right? I complain a lot. And after you can, man, to where we both have come from, to where we're at now, jeez, man, y'all wouldn't even know. Some people know that are close to us, but like, that's why I gotta like thank God, because sometimes I do exactly this. I complain, like, now I'm not talking about extenuating circumstances like what God did for them to Egypt, but it is very comparable when you've been at a bad spot and then now you're 10 times better and you're still complaining that God hasn't brought you out of there.
Yeah.
Like, you're still complaining. You know, so yeah. I do that a lot, and I recognize that, like, man, I'm complaining so much. So that's what I'm trying to, that's about my growth. But once again, I wouldn't have realized that I'm doing the complaining until I read the Bible.
Yeah, until I made that distinction,
like,
right?
Oh, man, I'm doing this as well. And God forgave them. So it's just about reading the Bible, praying every day, getting in His Word, and rebuilding that relationship and trusting God and submitting to His will. But man, when I tell y'all that's difficult, I'm being transparent. So, and this is not, I'm just being honest with myself. So,
yeah, I appreciate
it. So right here it says, what would have happened to the Exodus if lots of people acted this way?
Okay, so I had to go back and refresh my mind of what happened to Exodus.
He wasn't playing around.
Exodus was, they built the tabernacle in Exodus. And they had all those specific instructions. So I think if people were acting this way when that was happening, then the tabernacle would not have gotten built. And I think that I kind of, and now I'm making a different distinction, and not just about myself, but just about the way that we interact with each other. This is how things come to stalemates. This is how things don't grow, or like problems arise, because we're just, in a state of confusion as far as following directions. So like, we're not all following the same directions. And so, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of things that, are not necessarily like, they're never going to be perfect, but there's a lot of things that are not working, that are not actively working, right? So, I mean, one example, like, um, well, I'm not going to say that. But well, I'll say it. Politicians, right? Like a lot of people complain about politicians. Like this is the system that was built, that we came into. But a lot of people complain when they can't come to an agreement and pass a law, and it seems frustrating because it's like, why can't you just figure it out and get it together? Like that's what you're there to do. But it's they're not all being led by the same thing, so it's hard to come to a decision when everybody's not, like, perhaps, just depending on what bill it is, right, trying to reach the same outcome. And so I bring that up because the question is, what would have happened to Exodus if the people had acted this way? Which, to me, I just think if people were going to try to just complain and say this isn't happening, like, you brought us out here in the wilderness and we don't see no milk and honey. If they would have done that in Exodus, then the tabernacle would have never gotten built. Right? And they would have just been there doing nothing. They would have just been there at a stalemate. Like, well, I don't want to put red thread. I want to put green thread. It's just like, well, God said red thread, and God said gold, and God said bronze, and God said silver, and to hammer it out like this in one piece. And so if they were not on one accord listening, then they would have never been able to build the tabernacle, and they probably wouldn't have even survived, to be honest. Right? So, like, that's what I think. Yeah. That's what would have happened if lots of people would have acted this way.
I didn't think about the tabernacle. It just, man, I thought about in Exodus, I think God would have I think he would have got rid of him. He did this time, but in a different way. And so this time, he just opened up the earth and swallowed them.
It's not funny, but
I think in Exodus, he might have made an example. I don't think this time, because of the tribes are so big, and they were Levites, which they were around the tabernacle. I don't think a lot of people seen it. I think in Exodus, they weren't tribes yet, or it was the beginning of the tabernacle. I think he would have made an example and killed them in front of everybody, just like he did with Aaron's sons. Yeah. Like, where's Aaron's sons at? Did God kill them on the spot? I think, not to say God is listening to Moses more. I think he's getting a little bit more. I don't want to say he's. Sorry, God.
God is like lenient. I feel right.
Yeah,
he's more lenient than, especially than before the flood.
Yeah, he's
right?
more lenient. He's more. I don't want to say. I'm gonna say lenient. It sounds he's becoming more compassionate, but I think he's just more lenient. Like you said, he's more lenient. Like, all right, okay, I'm not gonna kill everybody this time, but your children will make it out of the wilderness and you won't.
Right.
In Exodus, I don't know if he would have started over.
So here's the thing, and I'll just bring this modern day because I feel like God is super lenient as opposed to like what we're reading here.
Yeah. God
is super lenient these days. Like, you got people going around worshiping very odd things, and you have, I won't say the majority of us, because I have no facts for this, but like so many of us are just distracted from his word, right? So like even me, right? Like I'm sitting here and I'm reading this stuff every week, and then I'm definitely better off than I was before we started reading so consistently. But like I react to something, and it's not the way that God would have preferred me to do it, and he's so lenient. We're back here, like in these days, if you were to do certain things, like you had to make a sacrifice, you had to clean yourself and be alone for 7 days, and like these sorts of things. And God is super lenient today because he's not necessarily I don't think he is taking people out like that. Like we had this whole COVID thing happen. I don't know that that was anything having to do with God's wrath. Um, but again, it's, we just don't know what's happening. But I think we're able to go on and live our superficial, you know, lives, and he's letting us do that. Um, and he's letting us complain, and he's letting us, and he's still blessing us with Wi-Fi and Netflix and all types of stuff. Like we still, you know, in America, like we still live a really decent life, and regardless to the fact that we're not being so obedient. So that's a really interesting point you bring up there. But I'm sorry, I feel like I cut you off. But did you answer that question? What would have happened to the Exodus? Oh yeah, you did. You did. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, this is a good discussion.
It is.
Okay.
All right, so Numbers 18 through 20, it breaks down the duties of the priests and Levites. Now remember, the Levites are close to God because they made a vow to serve God. So that's why it says priests and Levites. The water for cleansing. Moses' sin hitting the rock. And the death of Aaron.
Yeah.
So it breaks down it talks about the duties of the priests and Levites, and then it also breaks down the laws of purification. This goes to how, when it says purification, it's like some of the priests and the offerings that you have to give to God in this day, in this time. Like if you touch a dead body, you're unclean for 7 days. But back then they were washing clothes, and they were washing themselves, but I feel like back then they were dealing a lot more with livestock, and we all know this. The tabernacle dealt with blood, not human blood, animal blood, and because God considers blood life, it was only for an offering for the Lord. Like that's the only time that you deal with blood. Is it a burnt offering or fireable offering? So it just breaks down what type of wood, and that's kind of like the laws of purification. So it's more so what they're doing in the tabernacle to be cleansed, and if you're not, then it breaks down if you what happens if a stranger comes, and what happens if you touch a dead body and somebody dies. It just breaks that down in order to be cured. Not cured, but in order to be, purification. They use a lot of water for cleaning, like I just said, washing clothes, washing themselves. So going to then, Aaron passed away.
Yeah, that wasn't really covered in great detail. I don't remember.
No.
I remember when we read about it.
Numbers 20, verse 22, and he passed away. He was gathered. They stripped him, of all of his garments, and he perished, and they wept for 30 days. It breaks down of what they did when Aaron passed.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go to Moses sinned.
Yeah.
And this is rare. I think this is the first time. Now, let me tell you something, guys. This is the only example of Moses sinning. Then that's phenomenal. But, once again, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, yeah.
I mean, he has a very outstanding record.
Yeah, because the last time they didn't call it a sin.
Yeah.
But when he broke those tablets,
yeah,
this is kind of reminding me of that.
Yeah,
It just
Man,
hit me. That just
it
reminded
did.
me
And
because
once again, it's because of the people
yeah. Okay.
complaining.
Look, read the thing so we can get into this.
People complaining. All right, so per chapter 20, what emotions likely made Moses hit the rock twice?
Okay, so we know that they were walking along and they were complaining that there wasn't any water to drink.
Mm-hmm.
So then Moses went and prayed to God. Moses and Aaron, because Aaron was still alive at this time. They went and prayed to God and asked them, like, they're complaining again about no water. So God told him to go to this rock
Mm-hmm.
and raise, I think, speak to the rock or something
Yes.
like that. Maybe raise his rod to the rock so that the water could come out. So I'm going to answer the question in a
Yeah.
second, but I think it's significant because sometimes we're given an instruction to do something and we kind of like doodle the attitude. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember distinctly sometimes in my childhood where my mother would ask me to do something and I would like stomp away and do it,
Mm.
right? And that's not cool. I learned
Mm-hmm.
later on, like, well, I learned in those moments
Mm-hmm.
that you don't talk to me like that. Like, you don't do that. Like, you do what I say you do, and you can be happy about it, right? Like, don't pout, don't stomp, don't do whatever. And I feel like this wasn't one of those moments where he wasn't angry at God, but I think it was definitely the emotion of anger that made him hit the rock twice instead of just follow God's instructions. So God's like, okay, they're thirsty, go out to the rock, do as I say, like just raise this, speak to it, and water will come out. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, like I said, he hit it, and he said something when he hit it. It says, okay, this is Numbers 20, 11, right? So then Moses raised his hand in anger, and with his rod he struck the rock twice instead of speaking to the rock as the Lord had commanded. Now I'm reading from the Amplified version.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the water poured out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank fresh water. But before he did that, he said, sorry, this was in Numbers 20:10.
Mm-hmm.
He said, listen now, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? So
Mm.
he was saying we, right, which I didn't even pick that up before. But he was saying we as if he was doing it, and it was actually God that was doing it. But I think sometimes when Moses was being worked, when God was working through Moses, it was to show the mercy and the glory
Mm-hmm.
of God. So for him to deliver God's miracle in an angry way like
Mm-hmm.
that was a sin. But he was probably just so irritated with those people.
Uh-huh.
He was a human being, and like we talked about last time about how he was a meek person, but not man, you cannot keep it together 100% of the time. Something's going to
He was
knock you
human.
off, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just not
He was
perfect. Like
human in this
only
moment.
Jesus was, you know what I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
So
He was human.
it's just like, man, you have to, I mean, he I'm sure God dealt with him on that, but I can't fault him because I'm so imperfect, and I could see myself
Mm-hmm.
having a bit of an attitude with people after we've done witnessed so many miracles,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing this again,
Yeah.
right? So
Man, so this is deep because, okay, the emotions, I think, once again, I think he was angry. And we've learned
mm,
time and time again how emotions can get you in deep trouble.
mm-hmm,
Anger is one of them, right? If we go back, um, I don't want to say one of the early sins, the first sin was eating, right? Eating
the forbidden
the
fruit.
forbidden fruit. One of the earlier sins is Cain and Abel.
Mm-hmm.
Cain was so angry. He didn't even realize, like, man, I need to look at myself and maybe I can give God. And now I'm learning that when God asks you for a sacrifice, it needs to be unblemished, the best of the best, and He's going to provide it to you.
Mm.
He's going to provide you with the best fruits because God is saying, give me your best. And I don't know if Cain did. God was like, well, Abel gave me
His best.
his best. You didn't. and that's it. Like
Right.
that's
It's not
it. Like
pleasing.
he could have did. Here's the thing: if Cain wasn't angry, he would have just been like, all right, you know what? I can give next time God asks for a sacrifice. I'll give my best. I'll try my
Mm,
very best to give him everything my best. Now we
right.
know we talked about this. God is very direct and like he is listen to his word. He doesn't mince his words.
Mm,
He doesn't. He'll give you parables in a dream, but in the Bible, he's very direct when he
mm.
speaks. Right? So anger caused Cain to kill Abel. So when you get angry, you have to remember that that's one of those sins that you don't know what you will do.
Mm-hmm.
And God asked Moses to speak. He says, okay, listen. This is Numbers 28. Take the staff and assemble the congregation. You and Aaron, your brother, will tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring the water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. That's it. It's talk.
Right. Speak to the rock.
Speak. And he got angry and hit it twice. And like you said, he's human, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, his resume is impeccable.
Yeah.
Moses' resume is impeccable, but he had a moment, just like Job. You can say what you want about Job. Job complained, and what he went through was ridiculously like what
Yeah.
he complained, and it took him a very long time to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So he was human.
Mm-hmm.
We complain about waking up late for a job that God blessed us with.
Yeah.
Just it's like what,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Moses, I think he just, and I say this to people all the time. Sometimes you have a bad moment, and that was Moses' bad moment. He got angry. He's human, and we're all human. And he didn't listen this one time. He didn't, but he sinned.
Yeah.
And now this is how God is. So that's my emotion. But we're gonna move on to a bright, and we're gonna move on to a note that we talk about. But with Moses, he had a bad moment. He hit the rock. Now listen, we have bad moments, but because God is direct, Moses wasn't allowed into the promised land. He had a bad moment. It's
Yeah.
okay. I mean, listen, Moses is probably a pillar in heaven.
Yeah.
Not probably. I don't.
Yeah. I would imagine,
He's a
like,
pillar in heaven. Like he gets referenced so much in other chapters,
yeah.
and like referenced so much that
What a legacy left.
a legacy.
We're all gonna go, right?
Yeah.
We're all gonna go at
No.
some point,
Yeah.
and that's an amazing legacy, right? People are
Yeah.
never gonna stop talking about Moses.
No. Never. You know. So now we wrapped up with Numbers 21 to 22, and this talked about Moses makes the bronze snake. Moab, Shion, and OG.
I think it's
And
Og, but I like OG. No, it's
OG.
okay.
Oh man.
OG.
Triple OG. All right, let me stop. So, and then Balaam's donkey speaks. Now, so this is interesting. So the bronze snake, once again, the Israelites complain. Right? I'm saying this so much, and I read this and was like, man, I complain like the Israelites, and I probably complain more. But like, so, okay, so Moab, Shion, and Og are the ones that the Israelites. They're the ones that the Israelites just that God, where they're moving towards the land of the milk and honey, and these are the God. This is the people in the Bible. Remember we read that they went to war and they won. These are the three
Yeah, yeah.
kings. Well, Moab, the three lands. My apology, right? So, now for the bronze serpent, they complained and they said that they didn't have any food or any bread, and God got serpents, of fiery serpents, and they bit the people. And the people started dying because of the poison from the serpents.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, Moses prayed for the people.
Yeah. He just kept praying for these.
Kept praying. And God said, okay, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole. And everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, he shall live.
Fiery serpent of bronze.
Yes, a serpent of bronze. My apologies.
No, that's okay. I don't think it's in yours.
So he made it of bronze, and he set it on a pole. And if you look up, you're saved. A simple thing.
Mm-hmm. They lived.
They lived.
Because everybody else was dying from the poison.
If you look up to the serpent, the bronze serpent, you're saved.
Mm-hmm.
If you look towards God, you're saved.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, this is very interesting because the people that died didn't look up.
Right.
It's a simple thing. If you look up to me, you're saved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was doing some research, and this is what this question asks. And I'm gonna ask it, and then this is a good This is a good deep thing that I kind of I didn't notice it, but now I don't. I'm not saying I'm right, but it is in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how is the raising of the bronze snake a foreshadowing of the crucifixion?
Mm-hmm. You want to go ahead and start with that, because I think you already have.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, the bronze snake is looking up and trusting God.
Mm-hmm.
By looking up, you're saved by a simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus died on the cross, and if we look up to him and believe that Jesus died on the cross for our sins, we're saved.
Yeah.
Simple thing, right? Now, don't want anybody to deviate. We're reading the Bible, and both of us believe that Jesus Christ died on the sins
for our sins. Yeah.
For our sins.
Yeah.
He's God's greatest gift to us.
Yeah.
He is King.
For our
Remember that, right? The Lord is God, but Jesus is King.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was looking at something, and Grace Digital Network.
Grace Digital Network.
So,
okay, I just wanted to shout that out.
Some things I like, with everything else, it's a grain of salt. I just try to make sure with anything, y'all, just make sure you go back to see if it's in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jesus said that he is bread, right? He is the bread of life. Break it unto me, and then you have everlasting life, right?
Yeah.
He, and Jesus has mentioned Moses in Exodus, and it put it together. And then I was like, oh, that's why he said bread. So, when the Israelites, very early, needed to survive, they got bread, manna from heaven.
Yeah.
So, Jesus came from heaven.
Yeah.
He is the bread which God has given life.
Mm.
So breaking the bread is the manna that God... So basically, guys, to make it easy, because Jesus is God's son, and he came from heaven, we believe that he died on the cross from sins. He is the bread that can give you life.
Yeah.
Simplified. That's it.
Yeah, that was profound. I
Mic
definitely
drop, man.
yeah, mic drop.
Yeah.
That's a really good sort of highlight, or I don't know what to call it, but that's a really good point. I guess my answer to that would be, so how is the raising of the bronze snake a foreshadow of the crucifixion? To me, I guess it's a different play on what you just said, but it's kind of like the overall theme here for me. which is, God's love and his forgiveness and just like light eh, is available to everybody, but you have to seek it, right? It's not like God's going to come just specifically for you and make sure that you have a really cushy and enjoyable life, right? That's not what this is. This is not, you know, it's not that. This is life that God has provided and made you a part of so that you can have it. And if you seek him, he'll lead you. And he'll save you, but you have to seek him. So I just think that was a thing, because it's like you had made the point a little bit earlier how the people are laying there on the ground, right, dying of poison, and like, what else better do you have to do? Look up.
Yeah.
Just look up, right? Like, you can save yourself. Like, if you just look up. So I think also one of the things that I was looking at was the Bible Project, which is a YouTube channel, and I believe they have a website as well where they kind of just break down some of the stories. So like, we'll read and then we'll have our own like questions, and then we'll go like look things up. So on the Bible Project, there was a point made where they thought, they mentioned that the snake thing was strange, right? Like, why would you have to look at a snake or something like that? But it was the poison of the snake that was killing them. So it almost made sense, because it's like the same thing that you are suffering from, you can be delivered from, but you have to go through God. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like the entire point that he wants you to know that he's doing this for you, right? Kind of going back to that Moses thing with the rock. It's like, when you witness a miracle from God, it's I think it's because he wants you to know it came from him. He wants you to know that this isn't natural. It wouldn't happen any other way if I didn't do this for you, right? So I think it's one of those things where you have to seek it. You have to do the work, right? As somebody had mentioned, we went to this thing a couple weeks ago where the guy was like, he's not from America. He was saying like, you Americans have this thing, the customer's always right. That's incorrect. The customer's not always right. I don't know where y'all got that from. And I thought to myself, yeah, I've been saying that for years. The customer is not always right. In fact, a lot of times the customer is flat out wrong. And the subject matter expert can gently guide the customer to educate them and tell them like where they could use some more information. But the customer is not always right. I'm bringing that up because it's like, you have to do the work. Like, this is not a life that is created so that you can just be king, or you were talking about billionaires. Like, this is not that, right? Like, this isn't just set up for you to just go and be the king of the world. Like, it's something else. I'm not going to claim to know what it is, but I know it's not that. And we all go through things, and we all have flaws, and we all have, those things just that come with being human. But I think I'm gathering that the point is to seek God through everything. He'll show you he'll give you the desires of your heart. He'll show you what you should be doing. He'll show you how to serve him, and he'll heal you along the way, and you can enjoy life, right? You're going to go through some tough stuff too, but at least you have God. At least you that's what I'm noticing. So that's what I think. That's how I think the raising of the bronze snake foreshadowed the crucifixion, because you have to seek God, and then he'll deliver you.
Yeah.
Look up.
I like that. Yeah. Just look. It was like, just look up. That's
like that movie we watched called Don't Look Up.
Oh my gosh.
That movie was so
ridiculous.
Funny though, because okay, I think I said this in a previous episode. The movie was so funny because the whole premise of it was that these people were, about to have this thing happen where the world was going to end. And the administration that was in office at the time in America was like, basically like, don't look up. Don't look up. Don't worry, right? Like, we're going to fix this. And I'm not going to give away what happened, but at one point in the movie, they turned to the guy who had a faith, who had religion, and they asked him to pray. And I thought that was really interesting because at the end of the day, when it's really going down, right, I'm gonna be praying. So if you're around me, I'll pray for you too.
Yeah.
If I'm around by then. But
Yeah.
you know, it all comes back to that. You're gonna, either seek him now or seek him when it's too late. That was
Yeah.
so morbid.
No,
I don't
that's
even
real.
know what to
You're gonna
say it
seek
like
him
that.
now, seek him when it's too
Yeah,
late.
I mean, God is real, man.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
Yeah, you don't want to be seeking him when.
Yeah, I don't want to be like that
You
though. I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to
be
be
seeking
like
him when you're
lecture.
noticing people disappear and
Oh,
he's coming back, and then you don't want to notice him then because it's too late.
and I mean, I try not to be like I don't. I'm not trying to lecture anybody.
Yeah.
That's not my game. That's not our deal.
No.
We just want to encourage people to read the Bible. Like
Yeah.
this stuff is
Mm.
so important to know. Like I think we started out kind of like a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we expected it to be this um impactful,
Yeah.
right? Like we just knew we wanted to read it because
Yeah.
we are both, believers, and we knew that okay, we need to read it in an organized way so that we know everything that's in there, how it connects. But now that I'm reading it, I'm like, how did I ever go without this information? It all
Yeah.
makes sense. And as things are happening and I'm remembering things that happened before, and I know that these stories about the wilderness are going to be retold
Yeah.
in other books, it's a connection.
Yeah.
But already we're seeing where these things are still happening. Humans in our natural state are going to be sinners. We're going to do things like the Israelites are doing. You are an Israelite. I would almost guarantee it because I can say that for myself. It's interesting to know that this happened, and you could look around and see that the stuff is still happening because this is what humans do. But in order to sort of progress out of that and sort of have a better understanding of life, literally this Bible reading is so necessary.
Yeah.
I just gonna say it. So definitely don't want to come off like lectury or anything like that. And obviously everybody's gonna have their own relationship with God and their own, way to communicate with him. And so we're definitely not trying to be lecturing anybody. But I do want to say, just a shout out, the Bible Project. That's my shout out for this week, along with some other people who I'll shout out. But the Bible Project, if you look them up, you could probably Google it. But if you go on YouTube, it's called Bible Project, and they do these reenactments like with drawings of each of the books of the Bible. They even break down some of the people. So I wouldn't use that as a substitute for reading, because literally when you're reading, certain things hit you as you're reading that probably wouldn't happen when you're just watching like a 10-minute snippet. And obviously they have to leave some things out because it's a short snippet and a drawing, so you might not catch everything that you need to catch. But it is a good thing to like kind of recap, make sure you understood what you read. But that's my shout out for the week.
All right. Yes, and then actually we're gonna get to that. We're gonna do that next week because this ties into this, right? Okay, so because we saw that on the Bible Project,
Yeah.
So that's why I want to leave this for next week because it's gonna tie into.
Yeah.
This. All right, so.
Okay.
And we're talking about the end of Numbers 22. So if you're reading it, we're going to continue with 22 because it connects with 23 and 24.
Gotcha.
It's going to make perfect sense next week, guys. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Trust me, it's going to be a great opening.
So next week we're reading...
Yes. Go ahead.
Next week we're reading Numbers 23 through Numbers 32.
Yep. So that's where we're at next week. Once again, I'm always going to shout out... Yes, I'm a Unicorn, my wife's channel. Also, Miss Damita Jo. I'm also going to shout out Fourth Quarter, which is just listen, man. I love sports, so anytime, and yes, I know the game's on. But anytime that you want to hear, sometimes you get, and I love those shows. I'm not going to say their names, but sometimes it's just oversaturated with the same topic. So if you want to hear
Other sports
different
shows, you mean?
topics, other sports
Like
shows, or
mainstream.
mainstream is saturated. If you want to hear stuff from our perspective, the fans, just tune in. It's just us being authentic and talking, and we're having a good time. So those are my shout outs.
Yeah, I already shouted out Bible Project, Grace Digital Network.
Yep.
Gotta mention them. TeachSundaySchool.com. Also, just want to highlight one thing that one person he shouted out, Miss Damita Jo. Miss Damita Jo does reviews. She does just kind of like recaps of different shows. She also has a show on ReTV.
Oh yeah.
What's going on, and she just kind of goes over some of the things that are happening in our culture today. So super fun. Shout out to Miss Damita Jo. Her channel will be linked. Also, you could catch us over on her channel, herself and myself. Those two sisters. We go live most Thursday nights. This Friday and this past Friday, we did Friday night because we are reviewing a show live. But check out Miss Damita Jo's channel. You can see me over there. Disclaimer and warning, this is not for children over there. So just keep that in mind. It is definitely not rated G. So it's just two sisters talking very honestly and openly about different topics. So yeah, that's all we got. I wanted to say, as we always do, don't take our word for it. Go to the source. Read your Bible.
All right,
Right?
guys. Yes. Peace.
Peace.